Hi, I'm Susan Bishel with the City of Wheaton. Here with me today, David Trevino with the DuPage County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management is here to talk to us about vacation preparedness. Now, these are some of the most common months for traveling, and a lot of people are thinking about vacation and going other places, but sometimes you need to think a little better about emergencies, and you might not want to think about it, but being prepared, I'm sure, is very important.
It sure is. It's one thing to be prepared at home. It's maybe a little bit easier to be prepared at home because we're very familiar with the surroundings. We know, where our hospitals are. We know what's in our house and where it is and that type of thing. But by the very nature of a vacation, you're going somewhere that's fun because you're not always there. So it's important to be prepared for an emergency because an emergency that happens at home can be scary enough. Well, imagine if something were to happen somewhere where you're not familiar with the area. That's why it's really important to have an emergency preparedness plan for when you are vacationing. Unfortunately, we don't need to look too far back in recent history to see events such as the Boston Marathon, where people were traveling not just from around the state or the country, but from around the world there, and their lives were turned upside down in just a matter of moments.
Right.
And that really underscores the importance, I think, of being prepared, even on vacation, even though we want to have fun and we don't want to think about emergencies and bad stuff that can happen. By taking the time to prepare in advance, if something were to happen, then you can at least feel a little bit safer and a little bit calmer because you know what to do. You've talked about it and you've worked out the details beforehand as best you can.
Now, take us through the different steps of what should you pack. What are some extra things people might not think about that you should also pack in your suitcase that really could prepare you for an emergency?
Sure. So definitely you want to pack a cell phone charger. Even if you're just taking a short trip for the day down to, Springfield or something like that, where you're going down to check out some of the historic sites and you plan on coming back. Well, I actually last year I was down in Springfield and I got stranded. I had vehicle trouble and there was a problem getting the vehicle fixed, and it looked like I was going to be there much longer than I had anticipated. So even if you're just taking a day trip, make sure you have your cell phone charger. Even if normally you wouldn't use it because you're not planning on staying overnight, make sure you have extra medications. So if you do get stuck somewhere, you've got a few days of extra medications to take. Make sure you also have a list of your medications and the dosages. So many people have the little boxes that have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and they put their pills in there but don't know the names of them or what the dosages are. Well, if you run out of that and you need to get it replaced right away, you're going to need to know the names of those medications and the dosages. So have an emergency list that has written out contact information. So if an emergency does occur and you're not able to charge your cell phone because power is out for an extended period of time, you've got people's important contacts information written down, and on that sheet of paper you could also list your doctor's contact information, and you could also list the name and dosages of medication.
Yeah, I think so many of us would be lost without, so many people just use their cell phone as their phone directory. That's a really good idea, writing down.
Right, because once the battery dies, you'd be out of luck. So it's really important to have that written down. It's also important to have a weather radio. There's small travel size weather radios that you can have, and that's how you can be alerted if there is an emergency, such as a tornado warning or something like that. That's likely to occur in these warm summer months. Okay,
so you've got your stuff packed up. What are some things you should think about en route while you're flying or driving, or are there any special things you should think about in terms of an emergency?
Definitely. Hopefully you've let someone know where you're going and how you're going to get there. So if something were to happen, someone knows that, you were on that highway where this incident occurred, or, you were at that airport that was evacuated or whatever happened. So you definitely want to make sure that you have a trusted friend or relative who knows where you are, who knows how to reach you, what your plans are, and that type of thing. If you're traveling by car, you want to make sure you have either a GPS unit or a map or something like that. So if there is a detour, or if you do have to for some reason go a different way, you're not totally lost. You at least have something you can refer to.
Okay.
On a plane, for example, the first thing I do when I get on a plane and I get to my seat is I look to see where the exits are. I look to count how many headrests are between me and that exit. So if something were to happen, more often than not, when there's some type of an emergency like that where you have to evacuate quickly, whether it be a fire or whatever, it's very low visibility. So, right now I could look and see where the exit signs are, but if I actually need to exit, chances are I probably wouldn't be able to see those signs. So, it's important to know that, okay, if I have to leave here, the exit is 5 rows in front of me, so I'm going to, touch 5 headrests, and then I'll be to the exit, or 3 rows behind me, that type of thing.
Okay, that's a great idea.
Yeah, take some time to do that. It's something, you don't want to be overly paranoid, but at the same time, it just takes a moment to do, and it'll make a world of difference if you need to use that information.
Okay, once you do arrive, say you're staying in a hotel, are there any precautions you should take or things you should think about where you're staying?
Definitely. Again, you want to familiarize yourself with the layout of the hotel, know where the emergency exits are. In some other countries, like Australia, for example, they put exit signs down toward the ground level, whereas we put them up high, because the thought is, well, smoke rises, and normally in a fire you stay low to the ground, right, because you're crawling up below the smoke, so you're not going to see these exit signs that are up really high. So look to see, is it at the very end of each hall, or is it a doorway that's just in the middle of a hallway where the exit is? Again, how many doors between you and that exit? So if you do have to leave, you can count how many doors and know where the exit is. Also, when you go to sleep at night, put your hotel key in an easy-to-access place. So if you do have to evacuate, you can grab that, take it with you, so that if you do leave your room and because of a smoke or some other reason, it's more dangerous outside than inside, and you've got to get back in your room, you're not stuck in the hallway locked out of your room.
Okay, that's a good idea. You were talking about Australia and some differences there. Are there some other things you should do if you're going out of the country and overseas that you should consider?
Definitely. You want to make sure with your health insurance company, for example, that you're covered if something were to happen to you and you did need some type of medical assistance at a hospital or something like that. So just take a few minutes to call your health insurance provider and ask if you're covered in whatever country you're going to, what steps you need to take, and it's possible that you might need to buy a very inexpensive temporary policy to cover you while you're out of country, but better to find that out now than to have to deal with it later if you weren't covered.
What about in terms of the people you're traveling with, if you have children with you, or if you've somehow become separated?
Yeah, so you definitely want to have a plan. Obviously the best and quickest and easiest thing to do if everyone has cell phones is to call each other. But again, in an emergency, as recent as this Boston Marathon disaster that took place, cell phones weren't working. If you had arranged, okay, everyone, afterwards we're going to meet at the finish line, well, that area was cleared and people weren't able to access that, so that wouldn't have worked. So have a meeting place and then have a backup meeting place. So maybe, okay, we're going to meet at the finish line, and if for some reason something happens and we can't meet there, our secondary location will all meet back at the hotel.
Okay.
Keep in mind, too, that oftentimes in disasters where you're not able to make local calls because the local lines are all tied up, sometimes if you're able to get an outside line, you could make a long-distance line, long-distance phone call.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you have an out-of-state contact. Just like locally here in Wheaton, we should have an out-of-state contact, so if we're not able to get a hold of each other, we can all call cousin so-and-so in Texas or wherever.
Okay.
Similarly, when we're out of state somewhere together, we should make sure that there's a contact, whether it be here or somewhere else out of the area, so that if we can't all meet up, this is the person we're all going to call to let them know we're okay. Also be aware that there's, Google has a new service called, I believe it's People Finder. The Red Cross also has a Safe and Well website where you can go online to register that you're okay after a disaster and try and link back up with people after you get separated.
Great. Are there some other resources where people can find out lists of things they can do and things to consider for vacation?
Absolutely. Sure. If people go to protectdupage.org, that's our agency's website, protectdupage.org, they'll find all sorts of checklists and helpful information for vacation and emergency preparedness.
Okay. What about knowing about the place you're going? Or are there things you can do ahead of time to research or to be more prepared for the place that you're going?
Definitely. You can find out, everything from reading reviews of the hotel and of the area online to see, does this seem like a high crime area where it might not be safe to go out at night, to knowing the location of hospitals. Are there hospitals nearby, things of that nature, but really being well informed. And, just like Wheaton is an extremely safe place, but nevertheless, you normally keep your family close and your kids, you normally have a plan. Well, certainly if you're traveling somewhere that you're not familiar with, you want to have those same plans in place.
Okay. Now, kind of the reverse, if you're on vacation, making sure that there's not an emergency or that your home is safe, what are some things you can do as far as keeping your home safe?
Yeah, you definitely want to have a trusted friend or relative who can look after your home, who can go by and check and make things, make sure that things are okay, and that they have a way to get in touch with you if they're not. Just the other day at the complex where I live, something as simple as someone had left their interior lights on in their car, and I wanted to tell them, but I thought about, man, a lot of these neighbors, I don't know whose car that is. I wasn't able to help them. Well, similarly, how many of us don't know our neighbors? And if something were to happen to our house, would our neighbor know how to get in touch with us so that we could take action to remedy the situation? So make sure you know your neighbors. Make sure you have trusted neighbors or friends or relatives who are back here who will be able to check on things and then get in touch with you to let you know if there is something going on back at home. Or similarly, you can call if something happens and you need them to do something back here for you.
Okay. And I do want to mention Wheaton's Vacation Watch program with the police department. People can go to the city's website or call the non-emergency police number, set up a vacation watch to have the police check on their homes. So that's another idea of something people can do if they know they're going to be on vacation. Yeah,
and that's a great service offered by the Wheaton Police Department. Not all municipalities are able to do that. So the fact that Wheaton does that really shows that they care about their residents, and it's a phenomenal service. I would encourage you residents to take advantage of that.
Right. Are there any other things that you think people often overlook when they're going on vacation or traveling?
Just keep in mind, if you're checking your luggage to not put anything in there that you wouldn't be okay never seen again. Sometimes luggage gets lost, things get stolen, or it could be several days before you get your luggage back if it gets misrouted. So make sure medications and any type of medical equipment, if you sleep with like a breathing machine or something like that, make sure that you have that in your suitcase with you so that that way you have it if something were to happen to your luggage. And again, contact information is really important to have, and making sure that your family and everyone traveling with you knows the plan too. That's great that you've made an emergency plan, but make sure you share it with the people traveling with you and the folks back at home so everyone's on the same page.
Great. Well, I think those are some great tips for going on vacation. You don't want to think about these things, but being prepared really is the key to knowing, what could happen. And I think everyone that you're traveling with will feel much more safe if they know the plan.
They definitely will.
Now, what if your vacation involves the outdoors, or if you're not going to be staying in a hotel, say you're camping? Is there anything else you should be thinking about in terms of packing or planning?
Definitely. In camping, it really, I think, intensifies everything you need to do because you're not only are you in possibly an unfamiliar area, but you're even further removed possibly from first responders and things that can help you. So that really underscores the importance, I think, of making sure that at least one person on your trip with you there is trained in CPR and first aid, for example. Finding out, is there cell phone coverage where you're going? And will your cell phone be able to be charged the whole time? If not, what's the quickest and best way to get in touch with first responders if there's an emergency? Making sure that, again, people know exactly where you are and how to find you. And it's really important when you're camping.
Okay, and I would think one of the weather radios that you've talked about. Now, can you talk about where you can find one of those?
Definitely. So the Red Cross on their website, which is redcross.org, you can purchase weather radios there. But then electronics retailers and stores commonly sell them as well. So there's different types of weather radios. I recommend if someone's going to purchase a weather radio, the hand crank kind is nice. Maybe if you're camping, for example, because you don't need batteries. But I like the type that have batteries and that you can program so that when your specific county is under a watch or a warning, you get alerted. That way you're not getting alerts for other counties that are far away and stuff like that. You can actually program these. That technology is called SAME, S-A-M-E, and on the box or website where you go to purchase this, you should see that. It'll say SAME. It stands for Specific Area Message Encoding, but all you need to know is SAME. Okay. And there also, since weather warnings, when they're issued, are generally issued by county. Typically, it's a shape or a polygon that may cover multiple counties, but when the National Weather Service activates weather radios, they do it by county. So it's important to know what county you're in. So, for example, if you're going down to Springfield, Illinois, you're going to hear the weather warning for Sangamon County. If you're staying in the hotel, do you realize, you're in Springfield, do you know the name of the county? Do you know that it's Sangamon? So when you travel anywhere in the country, make sure you know not only the name of the city you're in, but also the name of the county. That way, if you see on TV or hear on the weather radio that there's a warning for such and such area, you'll know right away.
That's a great idea. Now, is there anything else in terms of if you're staying in a hotel, keeping your valuables safe, and anything else you should do when you're staying in a hotel?
Yeah, there's been some interesting videos on YouTube recently about hotel safes, and they're that some of them can be easily picked and things like that. So I would suggest people not overly rely on hotel safes.
Okay.
One thing I would suggest, though, is make sure that you take, I normally only get, if it's just me, I'll just get one hotel room key, because what's common for people to do is they'll get 2 keys issued to them and they'll leave 1 in the room, and that means that anyone else who has access to the room, whether it be housekeeping staff or whomever, if they have a card skimmer, they can swipe that card in this device, and imprinted on that hotel room card is your credit card number oftentimes, and other personal identifying information, which you don't want to have. So so make sure that you don't leave extra keys in the room, and have some concern and some regard for your physical safety and the safety of your belongings when you leave. So if you're going out at night for dinner, I always put the "Do Not Disturb" sign on my door, so that people passing by think that there's someone inside, so that they're less likely, hopefully, to break in. And if keep in mind too, I mean, hotels generally are very focused on providing good customer service. So if you're in like a back corner of the hotel or down a long hallway where there doesn't seem to be many people and whatever, it's nice to be secluded, but you might want to ask for a different room where it's a little closer to the lobby or closer to a well-traveled area, so that if you did need help or if something were to happen, people would be able to assist you.
Okay, so using some common sense, if you don't get a good feeling about something, maybe you could ask the hotel's staff to help you out. Or
Exactly. There's a great book called The Gift of Fear. It's been out forever. I think it's Gavin DeBecker, wrote it. And it interviews all these folks who were victims of crimes, and it talks to them. And in these interviews, one of the things that came out is almost all of them wound up saying, you know what, I had a sense something just didn't feel right before this happened, and I wish I would have paid attention to that. Oftentimes our subconscious mind picks up on things that consciously we don't realize, and then afterwards, when you piece it together, you realize, that person did look out of place. That was a little suspicious, and that type of thing.
Right.
So definitely, if you just have a feeling or an inkling about something, go with that. That that's something that shouldn't be just cast aside.
Yeah, it's especially good advice for when you're on vacation.
Definitely.
Really paying attention to signs, and that's great advice. Well, is there anything else you think are common pitfalls when you're traveling, or anything else any last tips you want to leave for people?
Just be careful with credit cards. I mean, it's so common now for people to get their credit card numbers stolen. So even, you may still have the card, but someone else steals your number, whether it's a server at a restaurant that goes to ring you up and they take your card with them, and you don't see that they, again, use one of these skimming devices or read the number off of it and the code off the back. So, I like to, when possible, to pay with cash for things. That way I'm not putting my credit card number out there so much for other people. So, make sure when you go out of the room, don't leave your credit cards lying around and stuff. Don't leave your wallet lying around. When how common was it growing up as a kid to, if we'd go to the beach, everyone would leave their wallet in their shoe. Like, that's really no one's going to think to look there, right?
Yeah.
So just think of those things when you're traveling, to safeguard not only yourselves but your property as well.
Great. Well, I think these are some great tips and a lot of useful information people can take with them on vacation this summer.
Great.
So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. Hi, I'm David Gervino with the DuPage County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, encouraging you to make this a safe summer by being prepared when you go on vacations. Take a few moments to learn about the place you're visiting. Find out what county the city you're visiting is in, so if there is a warning or a watch issued by the Weather Service, you know when to take shelter. For additional preparedness tips on how to keep your vacation as safe as possible, please visit us online at protectdupage.org.